All right, so welcome to my lecture on certainty. If you can't remember how it's spelled, here you go. And so I'm talking specifically about certainty as it applies to sort of the physical world and like where we place certainty and then how we can describe that and then how to sort of hold that true when sort of extraneous ideas are like there to counteract what we're certain in. So to begin to describe that, I'm going to explain the Heisenberg's principle of certainty, which applies certainty to subatomic particles. So to put it like really simply, if you have a subatomic particle, it has a location in space, and that's just a good way for me to describe it, like a coordinate, and then it has a rotation, like a, how it revolves. And the principle says that if you are certain of the particle's location in space, where it is, then you're the complete opposite of certain. You have no idea how it's rotating. You can only know one at a time. So if you were to first look at the rotation, then you wouldn't know where it was located. So that to me is very confusing and abstract, and because particles are so tiny you can't even see them, and I find that hard to relate to. So I like to put it into terms that I can understand, like something that I place certainty in personally. So I'm going to replace a subatomic particle with ideas. And so to keep track of everything, I'm going to start like a little vocab list down here. Vocab. So we have subatomic particle, we've got location, and rotation. Okay, we'll start there. So a new name that I have for subatomic particle is the subcontextual atomic mental landing platform. Which will live over here. So the first subcontextual atomic mental landing platform will be a glass of nice scotch and a fine cigar, which has a location in space and rotation, just as our Heisenberg subatomic particles do. Now, location's easy enough. The only thing I'm going to add to location is just in terms of x and y coordinates, because that helps me to think about them. And then rotation, since we're talking about ideas, I like to think of rotation as its sort of context globally. And so my name for that is, I'm just going to abbreviate here because it's a lot to write, but it is the very plain to see, globally resonant rotational context, which is your rotation here. Now, if we were to decide to discern where the scotch and cigar are located, then we would be unable to find its context globally, if we're thinking of it in terms of Heisenberg's principle. So if we have two particles, or mental landing platforms, we have this one here, and then we're going to add another one, which is going to be the Communist Manifesto. which also has a location in space and a rotation, or context. So, if we can only figure out one at a time, well, then we can only figure out one at a time. We don't know both of them, unless, in this case, we use quantum entanglement. So we're going to go with QE for that. And that's basically saying, that if two particles have a bond, then, and they have location and rotation just like everything else. As this one moves in space, if you were to move this one this way, this one would follow because they're together, or any other movement or rotation. So if we use these two in, combination with each other, then if we were to figure out the location of this particle A and particle B, then couldn't we then find the location of this particle, be unsure of the rotation? And because they move together, we automatically know the rotation or the location of the other one, because if you move this one's location changes also, just as this one's going to be rotating in a similar manner to this one, or the other way around. So that's all boring and dry. So we'll go back to this. So if these mental landing platforms are connected in their ideas, then they move together just as the other particles did. And if we were to break that bond, which is something that I left out of here, even once this bond is broken, the particles seem to interact in a similar way afterward. Like, if I were to move this particle after the bond is broken, this particle would react in a similar way in terms of location and rotation. Sort of, which is just kind of strange. It's almost like they have, they're like empathetic of each other, or they like love each other or something, like they don't want to be apart. So they continue to react according to the way the other one does, even once the bond is broken. And that's, this is just a bond, but then, where quantum entanglement comes in is when they react after the bond is broken. So if we were to break this connection, which doesn't make sense to think of it in terms of a bond, so we're going to add another vocab word, which is, instead of bond, we'll have a comparison of epic importance, which is just CEI. Will be an easier way to write it, I guess. So if they're bound by a comparison, which we then break, they're still going to react in accordance with one another. So if we were to find the location of the cigar and the whiskey, then we would automatically know the location of the Communist Manifesto. And if we knew the rotation, but we'd be uncertain of the location, or of the rotations, right? Or the context, I guess. But then, so if we figured this out, we would know the location of the other one. And then we could look for the rotation of this one, which normally would make us uncertain of the location, but we already know it because they've been compared. So because of that comparison, we know that. And so you can find everything in that way. So I don't know. Does anyone have any idea what the location of Scotch and cigar might be? Just like throw something out there, really. No. It's yes, but no. We're gonna on on the x-axis, we're going to have, it's going to be in southwest Colorado. And on the y, it will be masculine perfection. Or ideal masculinity, somewhere in there. Southwest Colorado. Yeah. So those are your coordinates there. So naturally, we then know that the Communist Manifesto is at in the minds of left-footed hippies and the essence of cool. So now, so we found location here, and then inherently we knew the location of the Communist Manifesto by our comparison, right? So if we find the globally resonant rotational context, if you want to use the official term of Communist Manifesto, it is the deduction that anyone and everything is valid. And then by our comparison here, we know that our context is a limited one-track outlook on life. And so now we know the physical location and the global context of both this this right here, the cigar and the whiskey or scotch and the Communist Manifesto. Thank you.